all you philosophers do is talk. You're just playing games with words. That's a criticism that's sometimes made of philosophy. I think that criticism is one of the best things that's ever happened to philosophy, because the person making the criticism is committing themselves to the idea that playing games with words is like bad, is not valuable, is not the best thing we could be doing with words, that there's something better we could be doing with words that wouldn't be in some way just talk. And I think that that's the core idea of philosophy, that we shouldn't just be playing games with words. We should be doing something else with them. So let me try to say what that is. So first, I just want to show you how we play games with words even when we don't realize that's what we're doing. So suppose someone comes up to you and they're like, "How are you?" And you say, "I'm busy." That's a perfectly normal thing to say. It's a perfectly normal response. Wouldn't raise any eyebrows, right? Conversation would go on from there. But what have you said? Like, what did you actually say when you said you were busy? What is it to be busy, right? Well, is it that you're like, doing a lot of things? I mean, at each given moment in time, we're doing whatever it is that we're doing at that moment in time, right? Always that's just a necessary truth. You can't compress time, so you can't do more things than the amount of time that there is in that time. But maybe the thought is, well, but you could do like a big variety of things at a time, right? So maybe, is that what being busy is? Is it that there's like a lot of heterogeneity to how you fill your time, going from one thing to the next? Maybe sometimes, but sometimes you could be quite busy with a single project for a long period of time, right? So that doesn't seem right. The mere sort of heterogeneity, that doesn't make you busy, right? So what might you mean by busy? Well, is it that what you're doing is really important? Is that what you mean by busy? Like, I'm doing important things? Sometimes, but sometimes we say that we're busy when we say I'm so busy I never get to the important things. I've heard people say that. So that can't be that, right? Does busyness have something to do with efficiency, right? So you might think, look, a given task, you can't compress time, but you can compress tasks sometime, right? And so like when you're busy, you have to fit a lot of tasks into a given time, and that means there's pressure on you to do each task as efficiently as possible. And so you're in a state in which demands for efficiency are called for. Is that what it is to be busy? That seems better. Maybe we're moving towards having some idea of like what busy is. I'm not sure that that's going to work for all the cases. Maybe sometimes people just mean that they're stressed, that they're worried about the things that they're doing in some way, in some vague way. So there are all these different things you could mean. It's not clear what we do mean, right? But we just let it slide. We just let people say, "I'm busy." And we don't say, "Wait, hold on." What are you talking about? In philosophy, we do say that. We say, "Wait, hold on, what are you talking about?" And we try to get to the bottom of what we say about ourselves so that we can actually understand it, so that it's not like this sort of dark puzzle, right? And the contrast here, right, is in the ordinary conversation, in effect, you hand me something like, "How are you?" And I hand you back, "I'm busy." And that's just a kind of trade. It's a kind of exchange that we're used to, right? So that "How are you?" is a perfectly normal thing for you to say to me, and "I'm busy" is a perfectly normal thing for me to give back to you. And we're sort of happy at that level. We're happy with the game of verbal exchange, right, that we're playing. And so we're not going to like look into it too carefully. We're not worried about, well, what exactly did you mean? We might only ask, what did you mean, if you said something sort of like unusual or surprising. Like if I said, "I'm going to the moon," you'd be like, "Wait, what?" Right? Philosophers say, "Wait, what?" about the kind of normal, ordinary things that we say. They see the kind of puzzle in those. Now you might think, well, okay, we have this "I'm busy" problem, right? This problem of not knowing what we mean when we say "I'm busy." Why couldn't we solve it by way of terminology? Like, why couldn't we say, look, let's treat busy as a piece of technical terminology and let's just define it. We'll just give it a definition, right? We'll just say busy means um, having to do more than 10 distinct tasks in an hour. Let's define busy that way. That's what busy is. Okay. We could do that. We could say that's how we're going to use the word busy, and we could agree from then on to use the word busy in that way. And if someone is like, hey, I was just really busy with one task for an hour, you'll say, no, we just don't use the word busy that way. We've just sort of by fiat, we've agreed to use it only for 10 or more, right? So, one thing we could do with our language is like we could kind of make it all like that. We can make it all terminological in that way, right? And when a word, once we agree to a word's being a piece of terminology, that sets a limit to sort of the degree to which we can inquire into it, right? Because it's like, it wouldn't make sense to be like, let's get to the deeper meaning of what you meant by busy. Look, all I meant was more than 10 tasks an hour. That's what we mean by busy. We've agreed to use the word in that way. So once we see words as pieces of terminology, in effect, the philosophical task gets foreclosed. And so it's crucial to philosophy that we not see all our words that way. We think that when people use words, there is something like a meaning to be inquired into, where you can get kind of clearer and clearer on what they were trying to do with that word under those circumstances. And they're not clear at first, but if you press them, you get kind of more and more of a sense of what they were after, and you can be surprised to learn what it was that you were saying with that word. And this is something Socrates did, right? So he went up to people and he's like, what do you mean by courage? When you say, I want courage, what is that? And he saw their words not as bits of terminology to be used as chips in a game where you exchange terms with another person, but rather as kind of pointers to things, right? Almost like the name. The word is kind of like the name of something. So when Socrates says, what is courage? You could think of that as, what is the thing, the name of which is courage? Where the thing is not a physical object, right? But it's something that we could get a sense of. We could come to understand what it is. And the point of language, the point of words, is to help us arrive at that understanding. So let me give you an image for this, okay? This is the image I use for what philosophy is. I don't know if it'll be helpful to you or not, but it's helpful to me when I want to keep hold of this idea of philosophy is not playing games with words, right? But kind of getting to the bottom of what the words mean. I use this image from the book, The Phantom Tollbooth. In the book, at some point, the main characters encounter this group of people who grow down. So they're born as babies in the air. And then over time, they grow and they grow and they grow, and their heads are always in the same spot. But by the time they're fully grown, their feet are touching the ground. Okay. And Milo and his dog and the main characters, right, find this very weird that these people are growing down, and they're like, that's abnormal. You should be growing up like us. And the growing down people say, well, we find it really weird that you live your lives with a constantly changing perspective. You're constantly looking at the world in different ways. Our perspective never changes, right? Because we're always at the same, and we just wait until our feet hit the ground. So I think that philosophy is like that weird world in which we notice that we're sort of floating in the air, and that our talk doesn't quite hook up to things in the way that we would want. And while, like, what other people are doing, the kinds of speech that other people are doing, it feels to us like, oh, they're always trying to get different perspectives on everything and look at things in some new way. But what we want is just to be talking about anything at all. We're just trying to get our feet to touch the ground. And we have this sense that when we're using words, like, we're kind of like not getting any traction, but that there is a traction that could be gotten. There's these words are not just bits of terminology. People do mean things by them. And so the project of trying to, like, grow your feet to the ground and actually it's like a worthwhile and a possible one. And that's what I think we're doing in philosophy.